Let's bring in Senator Tom Cotton. He joins us live now. He sits on the Armed Services, Banking and Intelligence Committee. Senator, good morning to you. Thanks so much for being here. So first to that, in Lindsey Graham announcing that he's going to hold this vote to subpoena more than 50 current and former officials involved in the Russia investigation. Do you support his move to do so?
Yes, I do. The Congress needs to get to the bottom of exactly what the Obama administration and the FBI was doing in the final days of the campaign in 2016 and during the transition to spy on the Trump campaign, and it would appear to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, a hallmark of our republic going back more than 200 years. Just last week, we learned that almost 40 Obama administration officials had unmasked the name of General Mike Flynn. Some of them may have had legitimate reasons to do so, career intelligence professionals, many of whom operate undercover, but there were a lot of partisan officials on that list as well, the White House Chief of Staff, the Secretary of the Treasury, even Vice President Biden himself. When you pile that on to the abuses of getting electronic wiretaps on some Trump campaign advisors, we need to get to the bottom of what was happening.
AG Bill Barr there, as you just heard in his own words, saying he does not believe that the John Durham probe will lead to criminal investigations of either Joe Biden or Barack Obama. The president saying he was very surprised by that yesterday. Here's President Trump.
I'm surprised because Obama knew everything that was happening. I don't think Obama knows where he is in a lot of ways. I saw his statements the other day, and I think that, frankly, they weren't very good. That's President Obama. As far as Biden's concerned, I can't tell you. Only he knows what he knows. I don't think he knows too much. But I think Obama and Biden knew about it. They were participants.
Were you equally surprised by that, Senator?
Well, like the president, I have great confidence in Attorney General Barr, and he obviously knows details of the criminal investigation that I don't. He did say that based on information he has at the moment, he doesn't perceive a likelihood of criminal charges against either President Obama or Vice President Biden. But there's no doubt, based on the transcripts that have now been declassified and released, that President Obama and Vice President Biden were well aware of what the FBI was doing. In fact, the acting Attorney General told the House Intelligence Committee that she learned about the unmasking of Mike Flynn's phone calls from President Obama himself. That's why it's so important that we get to the bottom of what was going on in the final days of the Obama administration. Even if there's not a violation of law, there appears to be gross abuses of power.
Meanwhile, I want to turn your focus now to the coronavirus and your strong words on China in a brand new opinion piece published in news. This is the Wall Street Journal piece on your plans to deal with China. We've had you speaking very strongly on holding China accountable on this program before. Here's that piece. Tom Cotton has a China coronavirus attack plan. Senator proposing spending billions on resistance to Chinese expansion. Here's your op-ed in Newsweek on the World Health Organization's cushy relationship with China. Published today, the bureaucrats at the World Health Organization are unlikely to give Taiwan the recognition it deserves, not with the CCP lobbying furiously against it. So it's up to the United States to stand up for Taiwan to ensure its contributions are acknowledged and its democratic aspirations are respected. So do you stand with the president on possibly defunding the World Health Organization permanently?
Yes, Sandra. The president's letter yesterday laid out in great detail exactly what China and the World Health Organization had done as far back as December to make this pandemic inevitable. If they had been frank with the world, if they had listened to what Taiwanese scientists, researchers, and doctors were saying in December, this might have been a local health emergency in Wuhan. Instead, it's a global pandemic unlike anything we've seen in a century. We ought to commend and highlight what the Taiwanese did early on to try to stop that. They've been probably the best country in the world in terms of controlling the virus. We ought to always stand with Taiwan, the only democracy on Chinese soil.
You know, you go back to Jerry Seib in that piece in the Wall Street Journal talking about your China attack plan. And he points out some of the risks that many critics are pointing to, as well as this possibly backfiring. He talks about decoupling economically can cause as much disruption for America as for China. Beijing's leaders, he writes, have made clear that arming Taiwan is a bright red line for them. Ultimately, of course, cold confrontation can lead to hot war. How do you counter that?
Well, first, as it relates to Taiwan, we have been selling arms to them for decades through Democratic and Republican administrations alike. It is the official United States policy enshrined in federal law that we will not tolerate an armed reunification of Taiwan with the Chinese Communist mainland. Second, in terms of economic decoupling, I think most Americans are now realizing that it is crazy that we allow critical industries like pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, telecommunications, semiconductors to be dominated by China, that we need to have those critical industries primarily located here in the United States or on friendly allies' territories, not in our main geopolitical rivals.
Senator Tom Cotton, we've got a lot more coming up on all of this throughout the show this morning. Appreciate you kicking things off for us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.